Welcome to this explainer. Today we are unpacking a truly dramatic, incredibly high-stakes topic. We're looking at an ancient institution, one that has literally survived plagues, civil wars, and reformations, but is right now facing a modern crisis so severe it threatens to tear the entire structure apart. We are talking about the Archbishop of Canterbury and the sudden, unprecedented unraveling of a seat of power that has stood for over a millennium.
So, you gotta wonder, right? How exactly does a 1,400-year-old global institution just unravel in the 21st century? To really understand this, we have to look at the massive shockwaves currently rocking the foundation of the Anglican Church. Because right now, we are witnessing a historic resignation, a massive geographical and theological schism, and historic firsts that are fundamentally altering the landscape of global religion.
To truly grasp the scale of what's happening here, you need to understand this number, 85 million. That is the estimated global membership of the Anglican Communion today. I mean, this isn't just about a single old church building in England. This is a vast, interconnected, global family of autonomous provinces. When the seat at the head of this communion begins to fracture, it sends tremors through the lives of 85 million people worldwide. And even if you aren't part of this church, watching how a 1,400-year-old institution tries to navigate global culture wars, it's an absolute masterclass in modern power dynamics.
Okay, let's dive into this. The Archbishop's seat is currently facing three immediate, massive crises. We've got Justin Welby's sudden resignation in early 2025, the huge GAFCON schism fracturing the communion in October 2025, and the historic, yet deeply polarizing appointment of Dame Sarah Mully in March 2026.
Section 1. Origins and Absolute Power. Now, to understand how this global institution reached a breaking point, we have to go way back to the 6th century to see how its power was built. The historical accounts tell us that Pope Gregory the Great was walking through a Roman slave market when he saw a group of Anglo-Saxon boys. Moved by them, he famously quipped, "Not Angles but angels," and right then and there resolved to bring Christianity to England. So in 597 AD, he dispatched a monk named Augustine, who successfully converted the King of Kent and established his seat at Canterbury.
It's wild to trace how this role evolved over time. What started in 597 AD as a simple, pretty modest missionary outpost changed dramatically. By 1170, the archbishop held so much sway that it led to fatal clashes with the monarchy. Jump to 1533, and the role was completely re-engineered to serve the state. And now, in 2026, we arrive at our fractured modern era. This office has constantly shape-shifted to survive. And honestly, nothing captures the peak, raw medieval power of this office quite like King Henry II's infamous outburst in 1170. "Will no one rid me of this turbulent priest?" He was actually screaming about his former close friend, Archbishop Thomas Becket. Becket fiercely defended the church's autonomy against the king's secular courts, and that defiance? It led to 4 knights assassinating Becket right in front of the altar in Canterbury Cathedral. It's a brutal reminder of the incredibly dangerous power struggle between the archbishop and the crown back then.
Fast forward to the 16th century, and that whole dynamic completely flips. Under Archbishop Thomas Cranmer, who crucially helped King Henry VIII annul his marriage to Catherine of Aragon, the 1534 Act of Supremacy was passed. This was a monumental pivot. Practically overnight, the archbishop was no longer a representative of the Pope in Rome. Instead, the office was transformed into a direct instrument of the English monarch, legally cementing a state-aligned power that heavily prioritized national interest and royal prerogative.
Section 2. First among equals. Now, that absolute monarchical power, that had to give way to a much more delicate, symbolic balancing act as the church started spreading around the globe. The crucial concept here is this Latin phrase, primus inter pares, or first among equals. You see, as the Anglican Church expanded into over 40 independent, autonomous provinces, the archbishop simply couldn't act like a pope. They've absolutely no power to dictate rules to Anglicans in Nigeria, Uganda, or the United States. Instead, the archbishop relies entirely on symbolic headship, historical prestige, and just the power of persuasion to keep this vast global family united.
So you end up with this bizarre duality to the role today. Domestically, within the UK, the archbishop still wields ancient constitutional power. I mean, they literally crown the British monarch and sit as a lawmaker in the House of Lords. But globally, their influence is entirely voluntary.
They convene the Lambeth Conference and act as a focus of unity, but any resolutions they pass globally carry absolutely zero binding legal force. They are essentially trying to hold the world together with a gentleman's agreement.
Section 3. A fractured global communion.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core issue because gentlemen's agreements rarely survive profound ideological divides. What's absolutely staggering here is the sheer demographic reality driving this fracture. Domestically, the Church of England's attendance has shrunk to roughly 1.02 million. Meanwhile, the demographic center of gravity has aggressively shifted over to the global south, places like Africa and Asia, which now boasts around 64 million members. That's roughly 75% of the entire global communion. So, the power sits in England, but the people sit in the global south.
And this demographic reality is colliding head-on with a very deep theological divide. Looking at this strictly impartially, we are seeing a profound split. On the one side, the Western provinces, led by the Church of England, have made progressive accommodations, things like ordaining female bishops and moving to authorize blessings for same-sex unions. On the other side, the massive global South provinces, heavily represented by a group called GAFCON, demand strict traditionalism. They firmly adhere to historic biblical teachings regarding sexuality and gender. Both sides believe with absolute certainty that they are faithfully following the true path, which makes finding a compromise nearly impossible.
So naturally, this isn't just a polite disagreement anymore. It's resulted in a very real formal break. In October 2025, citing Canterbury's departure from historic biblical teachings, GAFCON, which remember represents the vast numerical majority of Anglicans in the world, formally rejected the authority of the Archbishop of Canterbury. They severed ties, completely declared the Archbishop no longer a credible leader, and essentially formed their own parallel global Anglican Communion. That 1400-year-old unifying thread, it snapped.
Now, as if a global schism wasn't enough to contend with, the domestic institution suffered a devastating blow to its moral authority. The unraveling was really accelerated by horrific safeguarding scandals. Investigations revealed decades of severe physical and sexual abuse, notably by figures like John Smith at evangelical camps in the 1970s and 80s. Independent reports found that the church systematically covered this up, prioritizing the institution's reputation over actually protecting victims. The sheer weight of these systemic failures and the public realization of the cover-ups completely shattered public trust and ultimately forced Archbishop Justin Welby into an unprecedented resignation in late 2024.
Section 4. Facing an uncertain future. All of these historical weights and modern crises now fall squarely on the shoulders of one person.
Which brings us to right now, and a truly profound historical contradiction. On March 25, 2026, Dame Sarah Mully was installed as the 106th Archbishop. It is a triumphant, undeniably historic milestone, the very first female Archbishop stepping into a 1400-year-old office. Yet, her appointment inherently acts as an accelerant to the global crisis. For the progressive wing, it's a much-needed, long-overdue step forward. But for the traditionalist global South, it is viewed as a final, unacceptable departure from scriptural norms, which just deepens the schism even further.
So we are left with this massive, pressing question to ponder. Can the 106th Archbishop actually hold together a communion that is frankly already walking apart? We are literally watching in real time as an ancient, global institution tries to navigate profound modern contradictions. Whether the seat of Canterbury remains a true focal point for the globe or merely a symbol of a bygone era remains to be seen. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking questions and keep seeking to understand the systems that shape our world.